Hello, and welcome to this edition of Safe and Sound. I'm Bob Watts. This month we have a program full of healthcare subjects, and of course we can't talk about anything healthcare related without engaging one of the dedicated professionals that makes up the St. Charles County Department of Community Health and Environment. Hope Woodson will be here to tell us about that department. Ryan Tilley, Director of Environmental Health and Protection Division, will tell us about his office, where we will learn about the importance of temporary food permits. We will hear about Nurses Week from Shelley Reynolds, who is also part of the Department of Community Health team, and then hear from Rocket to Fit Incorporated owner Maria Mazzola about getting in shape after those cold winter months. We're going to steer away from the Health Department for just a bit and visit with Rocky Morgan, St. Charles County Building Division Director. But first, who better to start this program full of information from and about our Community Health Department than Hope Woodson. Hope, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Hope, if you go back through the programs that we've done over the past several years, you'll find that there's one department heads above heels of the rest of the departments who makes appearances on the show. And that's because your department is in charge of such a diverse amount of important services to the citizens of St. Charles County. Tell us a little bit about the responsibilities of your department.
My department is the Department of Community Health and the Environment, and our main goal is public health services, which is kind of a wide general term, but what that does is it encompasses several different programs that kind of all work together that benefit the health of the community. We have services that range from animal care programs to environmental quality programs to immunization and STD programs, and all of them at some point touch the community in different ways. But the important thing is the main goal of the entire program is to make sure that the health and well-being of the community is taken care of at a variety of different levels.
And it falls under a public health campaign?
We are looking to do a public health campaign to really push what public health does. A lot of people don't fully understand how involved public health is in the health and well-being of a community. And I think it's very important that our citizens begin to understand. And so for the next year, we plan on really making a push for our citizens to fully understand how they can be involved and participate in healthy outcomes within this county.
What is the public health services? What services are provided? Go into a little deeper with the Public Health Division.
The Division of Public Health houses vital records, which is birth and death records. We have an immunization clinic. We do disease prevention, and that's at a communicable disease level and an STD prevention level. We also offer WIC services, which is a Women, Infants, and Children program.
And what is the environmental services?
Environmental services is also a very wide variety. Most people know them as health inspectors, and we do health inspections of many restaurants, daycare facilities, and so forth. But we also do recycle works, community outreach. We do a lot of educational programs, a lot of clean stream programs, solid waste disposal, a wide variety of anything involved in healthcare and environmental where they meet.
Another very visible department of yours is the Department of Humane Services.
The third and final division of our department is Humane Services. We have a pet adoption program, which since the program's open, we've adopted over 30,000 animals within our program. We also investigate any type of cruelty calls, animal abuse calls, dog bite situations, well-being of animals in general. We go out and visit. We do public outreach. We teach owners how to better care for their pets. We teach children how to better interact with animals in schools, and we do private tours of our facilities for a lot of schools.
There is a wide variety.
There's a wide variety.
Number of programs there. What's your favorite part of it?
I think my favorite part is, if I had to choose, is vital records. It's amazing to me the amount of data that you can learn from a vital records program. When a person applies for a birth record or a death record, we collect data on possibly what the cause of death was and what the health factors were related to that cause of death. And then we can actually see if we see a trend among those deaths within our community. And we can set up programs like obesity programs and smoking cessation programs that are related to those health outcomes. So we're constantly, with each program that we have, not only are we providing a service, but we're collecting data to try to make improvements in our community.
And you get called in on a lot of emergency services, such as the pandemic things that was going on, and you just have to jump into gear with that also.
Yes, pandemics, health departments are the primary providers in pandemics, or if there was ever any type of biological situation, we are on the front line for that. So in addition to everyday services, there's constant planning for emergency preparedness services. Should something ever happen, then we would be prepared to deal with it as we did during H1N1 a few years ago.
And this is something you have to stay on top of every day.
We have to stay on top of it every day. We have to watch and monitor what's going on around in the world. And when we see a red flag go up, maybe in another country, that doesn't mean that we can't start preparing for it now, because disease happens quickly. The spread is quickly. It can hit you when you least expect it. And if you're not ready for that, then it can overtake you pretty quickly.
It's without a doubt that anyone who lives in St. Charles County, somewhere along the line, is going to make a contact or get in touch with the Department of Community Health.
Even if you least expect it, I think the health department touches your life at some point, whether it's bringing your child in for a school immunization or back-to-school immunization, or picking up a birth certificate, or picking up a death certificate for a loved one, or maybe you've eaten at that restaurant where something didn't necessarily go right and you have to make that complaint. We will investigate all that. We touch a lot of different areas, and a lot of people don't even realize that we're involved in it.
And you do a very good job of it.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
To keep in the theme of the St. Charles County Health Departments, let's hear from Division of Environmental Health and Protection Director Ryan Tilley, who's going to tell us some helpful information about temporary food permits.
A temporary food establishment is an establishment that operates for no more than 14 consecutive days. An example of one could be at the Festival Little Hills, O'Fallon Heritage and Freedom Festival, Oktoberfest, or any one of the other community events like churches have picnics during the summer, or any other roadside stand that might want to operate a food establishment for the weekend. All organizations operating a temporary food establishment need a permit. You can get a permit from us at the Division of Environmental Health and Protection for St. Charles County. Not all establishments will need a permit. Some of them are exempt, but come talk to us and we'll let you know if you're exempt or if you do need to get a license. You should also check with the event coordinator to make sure that you're following all the rules and regulations that the coordinator might set on you at your festival. Most food can be sold at a temporary food establishment. However, there are some foods that we do not allow, and you should check with us to make sure that the food that you want to serve is allowed. All the food has to be from an approved source, and the food has to be prepared in a commercial kitchen that is inspected. The site that you use to store the equipment and the food must be capable of hot holding your food and cold holding your food, so you have to have all the appropriate equipment to do that. Also, it cannot be done in a private home, so that's why we have to enforce that you do it in a kitchen that's inspected or a commissary. A potentially hazardous food product is a food product that is capable of supporting the growth of microorganisms. This is usually something that has to be held hot or has to be held cold. These types of products could lead to infection or other types of microorganism. If bacteria is allowed to grow in a potentially hazardous food, it could lead to an infection or other toxigenic microorganism growth. As I mentioned before, temporary food cannot be prepared or stored in your home. It has to be done in a commissary or an approved kitchen. The reason that we do this is because we want to track the source. We want to know where the food came from and how it was prepared. So one thing that we ask that if you can't prepare the food in an inspected kitchen and you're going to buy it the day of the event, we ask that you keep the receipts with you so that when the inspector comes by to check your booth, you can show the receipts, and then that way we know that the food has been properly temperature controlled and that the food came from an approved source and didn't come from someone's home where we don't know what the conditions are like. A commissary is necessary for food establishments because it's a base of operation that allows that food establishment to do all their cooking and utensil cleaning and ware washing. Some examples of things that need to be done in a commissary rather than in the booth are cleaning and sanitizing of the utensils, proper disposal of the wastewater, food storage, and the fresh water source, which is like your tap water and things like that, so that it's not coming from a well source, it's coming from a city water supply. To obtain a temporary food permit, you must first fill out the application. The application is called a Temporary Food Facility License Application, and you can obtain one of those by coming to our Division of Environmental Health or go to our website, scchealth.org, or you can give us a call at 636-949-1800. If food is sold or given away at a farmer's market, they are treated exactly like a temporary food establishment. The reason why is because there's no difference between a farmer's market and a temporary food establishment when it comes to serving food, because the food is still being served, so there's no difference. It's not where you sell the food that makes the difference of whether the health department gets involved. It's the type of food that you're serving, the sanitation practices that go into it, with the source of the food. It's all those things combined together that invoke the health department's concern and reason for wanting to look at that food and making sure that it's safe to the public. If someone has a question about temporary food facilities or farmers markets or any of the festivals going on in the county, they can contact the health department here at 636-949-1800, or they can go to our website and get a lot of information at www.scchealth.org.
Thanks, Ryan. Don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we'll tell you how you can get in shape after winter.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
60 minutes of physical activity a day and eating well can help get your child healthy. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov. That's letsmove.gov.
Welcome back. As winter passes, your thoughts turn to the warmer weather and how to get in shape for spring and summer. Here to tell us just that is owner of Rocket to Fit Incorporated, Maria Mazzola.
Getting in shape after winter. Well, it's a mindset. You have to really put your mind to it. It should be both exercise and diet, and you really have to work at it, because eating healthy is not easy. It's just not. People do not know, off the top of their head how to just go shopping for healthy food. So you really have to take the time to figure that. And as far as exercising, you just have to make the time. A lot of people have excuses, and when you're making excuses, you're just steering yourself away from getting in shape. I think when you decide that you're going to get into shape, you need to make some realistic goals, short-term realistic goals. It's a lifestyle change. You have to accept the fact that you're not going to be able to eat like everybody else, and it's around you at all times. Everywhere you go, there's food, and you really have to get it in your head that, this is what I'm going to do. You have to separate reality to your willpower. There's several different ways that you can make your lifestyle changes, and there's a very cool little app called MyFitnessPal. It tracks calories, and that's probably the best way. As soon as you get on that app, within a week where your problems are, because people always tend to overeat. They just don't know exactly what they're eating throughout the day. Switching from fried to baked, or giving up soda, replacing it with water. I don't recommend anybody completely changing their diet from the get-go, because they're going to set themselves up to fail. And of course, it's actually depressing to go from one lifestyle change to another, and you've got, there's a lot to it. The first 2 weeks when you decide to do this is the hardest, and a lot of my clients get discouraged because, well, for one, every time they work out for the first 2 weeks, they're going to be a little sore. They tend to get a little discouraged if they get on a scale and they're not losing any weight. And I always try to tell them, just give it more time. If I can get past 2 to 3 weeks with them, chances are they'll stick with it. And I try to make it as enjoyable as possible. And that's really kind of the key to working out. You do the same thing over and over, it's probably going to get really boring, and people tend to quit. So the first 2 weeks, you really want to switch it up, make it fun, and just stay with it. That's the big thing, is just stay with it. But that's part of that commitment in your mind and getting past that. And then once you start getting used to it, it becomes a lot easier. Cardio is the way to do it, and diet is the way to do it. If you don't combine those, then it is going to be harder. But drinking lots of water, taking vitamins, believe it or not, everything factors in. Everything that you do that's healthy is going to factor in on losing weight. everybody's metabolism is different, and I do know that when you're in your upper 20s to early 30s, most people see huge changes in their body. It's not as easy to lose weight. It's not, you know, when you're a kid, you know, you're 21, 22 years old, it's like, I'm just not going to eat for a day, and you lose 5 pounds. You know, that's just not the case when you get in your upper 20s and your early 30s. If you start working out and you have an injury or you have any medical issues, you should really consult a physician. And most trainers are going to require that because there's some hidden issues in there too. So if you think that you have a high blood pressure, any heart issues, a murmur, if you are really overweight, I would suggest getting medical clearance from your physician. There may be things that you're not supposed to do. Starting working out, I wouldn't just jump in. I would definitely start slow. Walking's fantastic. You know, once you start getting your body used to movement, you know, you go a little further, and then you can probably start doing some strength training and resistance training. Any cardio is fantastic, but everything should probably be started really small. And then gradually, I mean, a fair amount each time, get a little more time, a little bit more weight, and you should be fine. If you've exercised before and you stop and you go back, surprisingly, your body adapts very well to that. Your body is used to it, even though you haven't done it. I think most people get back on track way quicker if they did exercise before. And of course, they have the experience of exercising. That's always a huge factor, whereas a beginner may not know how to do certain exercises, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult. It's really important not to overdo it when you start exercising. There's a lot of things, injury, you're real susceptible to injury. You got to work your body into it. You could have muscle soreness that you just don't like. A lot of people like having muscle soreness because it feels like they got to work out. But if you're you just started working out, that could kind of scare you. I think it's really important to make workouts fun. We obviously at Rocket to Fit, we listen to music. I have them pick their playlist and we work out to certain things. A lot of people want to bring their own music. Music's great. Switching up your workout is really important, I think. It's always better in the spring because you can get outside and go do things. You can go to a park. Most parks now have stationary, places where you can go and stop, and they have, the instructions right there. There's working out with a friend. That's fantastic because then you're motivating each other. You can set goals with each other. To change up your workout, maybe one day you go do cardio. Go run, go for a long walk your dog. The next day you might want to do some strength training. I like to work everything in the body, all muscle groups. A lot of people like to do just the upper body, and then the lower body the next day or 2 days later. There's so many things you can do. We obviously do kickboxing here, so we might do kickboxing one time a week and then do just a straight circuit training the next day. Mixing it up is always key. The mindset. Part of that is accepting the fact that you may not see results immediately. It's very important to really factor your diet and try to come up with a game plan of what you're going to do each week. Allow a certain period of time. Don't make excuses. That's huge. Everybody's body's different. Usually it'll take 2 or 3 weeks before you start seeing some results on the scale. It might take 2 or 3 months to see for your family and friends to notice a difference. But when that starts happening, it's a momentum. And you get more energy, you get to feel more positive about yourself, and you start getting results. And that's when it becomes a little easier. And then once you're rolling with it, your lifestyle change begins to happen. And once you accept it, you're good to go. When you do start, you may not see results on the scale, but it could be muscle. The key is how your clothes are fitting. And that's where I think people, I don't want people to get on the scale every day. I would say to my clients, never get on the scale every day or you're going to be disappointed. You know, that it's just the way it is. But you're also, if you're gaining muscle, you're shaping yourself and toning yourself, and it should be more in the inches that you're losing rather than the scale.
Thanks, Maria. Many of you have received aid from a nurse, may know a nurse, or maybe one yourself. But did you know that there is a week dedicated to nurses? Here to tell us all about it is St. Charles County Community Health Nurse Shelley Reynolds.
National Nurses Day is celebrated on May 6th. National Nurses Week is celebrated from May 6th to May 12th, ending on May 12th, which is Florence Nightingale's birthday. Florence Nightingale is known as the founder of nursing. Florence Nightingale is otherwise known as the Lady of the Lamp, or the Lady with the Lamp, because she used to tend to the wounded soldiers during the Crimean War, which was during the 1850s. Nurses Day, it's a celebration of all nurses. So it definitely celebrates registered nurses, LPNs, so it's a celebration of all nurses. A registered nurse is a nurse who has completed at least an associate's degree or an ADN in nursing, or a bachelor's of science degree or a BSN, and then has gone on to successfully complete an NCLEX RN certification exam. At 2.5 million strong, we make up the largest workforce in the clinical healthcare industry. So once you get your education, a nurse can work in a local public health agency, you can work at a doctor's office, an ER, occupational health, a school nurse. The list goes on and on. A nurse can essentially write their own ticket these days. The American Nurse Association website is a wonderful resource for not only the professional but the layperson looking for information on what the profession has to offer, as well as what Nursing Week is all about. The website offers information on professional development, continuing education, advisory councils, upcoming events. If someone is looking on information on becoming a nurse, it's a really good place to start as far as information on what a nursing career has to offer in terms of what to expect, how to start the education process, and it even has a spot to look into as far as a nursing career center. So it's a really good resource. It's a wealth of information. Check out the website. It's nursingworld.org.
Thanks, Shelley. Don't go anywhere. We have more safety information for you after this break.
It would be safe to keep your distance until the secret that laughter makes you smile. Reliable sources say that chicken soup has found their way out of this. They are returned.
Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. Go to discovertheforest.org.
Welcome back. Since the late 19th century, electricity has been constantly changing the way people live and work. Methods for generating and utilizing electricity have also evolved over the years. Despite these significant advancements, electricity remains uniquely unforgiving if not used safely, which has led to the development of National Electrical Safety Month. We have with us now St. Charles County Building Division Director Rocky Morgan, and he's going to tell us a little bit about electrical safety and National Electric Safety Month. Rocky, welcome.
Thanks, Bob.
Tell us a little about National Electric Safety Month.
It's kind of devised as a safety system to make people aware, homeowners and business people alike, to pay attention to the electricity in the building. Each year you should check your smoke detectors, the batteries, change them. You should also check your electric panel, make sure the breakers are all operating properly, switch them on and off annually. You should walk around your house looking for loose receptacles, loose switches, frayed cords, anything that may be a hazard to the electrical part of the house, that's the time to do it. And that should be an annual check, and that should be done in the spring normally.
Now, the division that you work for St. Charles County, they have adopted through the county the National Electric Code, and you enforce that throughout. What is the main purpose of that National Electric Code? It ties into all of this.
The electric code is strictly safety. Just like any building code, it's strictly for safety issues for homes and buildings. Without the building code industry code books that we do enforce, you would have buildings built that are not structurally safe, that have shocking hazards in them. You'd have trip hazards, so it's all combined with all the building codes together.
Now, what do we see different in a house that we may build today as opposed to one, say, 20 years ago?
Today we have some advances in the electrical system. We have the arc fault breaker, which an arc fault is a breaker that's installed in the home on every circuit that's not a GFCI protected circuit. So an arc fault breaker will trip on any kind of little arcing in the electrical system at all. There's the older homes you see that catch fire a lot of times is because of electric, and the electrical system will have an arc. The arc finally develops into a fire. These type breakers will trip and turn the circuit off prior to any fire getting started. We also have the GFCI protection, which is another device that will trip the circuit much quicker than a breaker will. So here again, it's all part of the protection of the home.
So yeah, the point of these devices is to stop the flow of electricity before it can do some damage.
Exactly, Bob.
If you're going out and buying a home today, is there something you can look for that will tell you that this home was built to these standards?
You can hire a building inspector, a private building inspector, or you can just have us come by, and we will look and make sure that we have the proper devices. Now, if your home is more than 20 years old, it's not going to have the up-to-date systems. People just don't go in and start putting new breakers in. They're expensive, and you have to hire an electrician to do such. So unless it's mandatory through the loan people or building, whether it be a room addition or something like that, where we're going to come in and have them update the electrical system, it won't be done.
I remember a time when aluminum wiring was a big problem or scare, especially in some of the areas of St. Charles County. Had a lot of aluminum wiring. That is all gone now? Or?
Bob, you're right. It was back in the mid-'70s. For about 2 years, the price of copper went so high that the industry allowed aluminum wiring throughout the house for the circuits. There was about a 2-year span. Fortunately, the copper price came back down, and they realized the aluminum wiring really was not the best device for the house. So now it's all done in copper again.
And the boxes are plastic now and not metal and everything like that?
Bob, 50 years ago it was all metal boxes with a very small little device in the box. There was a lot of shocking going on. It was a 2-wire system instead of a 3-wire with a ground. Now we're plastic boxes. We have 3 wires going into the box. We have a hot, a neutral, and a separate ground for the device. Today electricity is 50 times safer than it was 50 years ago in a home.
And we're still looking for ways to harness that power source safely.
Oh yeah, and I think the industry itself, I'm not going to forecast where it's going next. It's really hard to tell. There's always experts working on the devices to improve things, to make safety hazards, to watch for that. We enforce what's given to us in the books, but I'm sure in another 10 years there'll be other devices that have been developed and will be used.
I believe you're right. Thanks for coming in, Rocky.
You're welcome.
That's all the time we have today. Hope you have learned some helpful information. Please join us next time for more information to help keep you safe and sound.